Welcome to the SYRAS video guides. This is the 5th guide in a series. This one is about the screening tools themselves. I'm assuming that you've already become familiar with the other topics of account management, importing your data, deduping your imports, and assigning work to teams already, so I won't cover those again. In this example, I've set up a project with just 20 references imported, and I'll show you how to go through the screening process in more detail. So I'm already logged in, I'm in the project management page, and I will click the screening button. This takes me through to the screening page. We've tried to make this as simple as possible. You're going to be spending a lot of time staring at this page, so we've thought a lot about the ergonomics of this page and trying to make it as easy as possible, but also provide you with enough tools to do different workflows. The main two buttons on this page are include and exclude, and that's so that you can very simply label an article of interest to the project or exclude it from your review. Quite simply clicking that or clicking this one. There are other navigation controls which allow you to do things like go back through the articles that you've already included, which is something that people tend to want to do. Bear in mind that you're going to be reviewing hundreds or possibly thousands of documents, and so going back and trying to remember which ones you've already included is quite important. So if we exclude and include a few here randomly, now you can see that we can skip back through the ones that we have labelled as good, as interesting, avoiding all the ones that we've excluded, which could be a very high ratio. You may only have, 10% of your articles may be of interest, depending on how good the original database search was. You also notice that there are tooltips flashing up. Initially, these are quite helpful, and they tell you what all the buttons do, but after a while, they might get annoying. So you can turn them off under the account settings, and I'll show you that in a minute. You may have also noticed that there's a progress bar inching its way across the screen. With 20 articles, this is going quite quickly, but with 1,000 articles, it would be a lot slower. But it gives you an idea of how far you are through the project. There are also other navigation controls that you can use. You can simply go backwards and forwards through the articles. You can see the index number is here. That's just the order that the article was imported in, or it could be the randomized number if you chose the randomization during the import. So you can step through these. What you'll also see when you're re-reviewing an article that's already been included or excluded, you can see the tick here, which shows you the choice that you've already made. You can change your mind at any time. If you have a specific article that you've remembered that you want to go back to, you can remember the index of it, and you can type that number in and jump straight to that article. At any time, if you want to go back to where you got to, this blue button is the useful one for getting back to the head of the queue, where you are in your workflow. This takes you to the next unlabeled article, which is the next reference that hasn't been reviewed, hasn't had anything ticked. So this brings you back to where you need to carry on. So let's carry on excluding and excluding. I'm not actually reading these articles, by the way. Now, if you get tired of using the mouse, and if you're a power user, there's actually keyboard shortcuts. So what you can do is go to your settings area, and you can enable these keyboard shortcuts. So if we tick those on, now I've set up 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the primary buttons. You can put in arrow left and right and things like that. C for comments. There's some tips here on how to set these up with some of the funny keys. In future, we'll make something here where you actually press the key. We haven't done that yet. Now let's turn off those tooltips. Now that we're a power user, we don't need to be told what all the buttons do. And save that. Now when we go back to the project, to come out of here, we need to carry on screening. So this is where that blue button is useful, because we come back to Article 1 but we want to carry on where we left off, about halfway through. So this is article 12 in the list, and we want to carry on from there. Now from now on I'm going to use the keyboard controls to keep moving forward. So include, exclude, 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 and so on. Now if you're whizzing through loads of documents, that may be a lot easier than clicking the mouse. It's totally up to you. Now there's a commenting feature over here. So if you wanted to discuss, if you wanted to remember something, just keep a note on an article, you can put a comment in here, whatever you want. One use of these comments is combined with these other tagging buttons that you can use. So for example, you may want to exclude an item, but you may flag it as of interest. These are basically two tags, one that says it's of interest, one that says it needs more of a reference check. So you could exclude it for now, or you could even leave it unlabeled for now and say that it needs a reference check. And then you can read your comments here later. Now these comments become more interesting later when you have the collaborative review team structures, where you can see what other people have said on other articles after the blinding. So I'll come back to that in the disagreements, for example. It becomes much more useful. So let's carry on. We've just excluded that, but we've left a few notes on it. Let's go back and you can see that these are all ticked and that comment is there. So that will remind you why you ticked the references or ticked the interest on that. These will also show up in the exports, which I'll show you later. So we're almost done on this. There's one other tool that's worth mentioning at this point, which is a keyword highlighter. So before we finish this project, let's go back to the personal settings and tick this visual keyword matcher. This highlights relevant words during screening, and this has been found to be useful. So we'll return back to the project, we'll continue screening, and we'll use the blue button to find our place again. So you can see that there is a new panel arrived on the left-hand side here, and some of the words have been highlighted. If you click the little cog, you can edit the words that I prepared earlier. So I'm saying that I'm interested in the word dyslexia, but I don't want the word stress, for example. Now, this doesn't affect the presentation order at all. All it does is highlights the words, and it gives you an overall score. So, for example, perhaps this document isn't really so important to us because it's got a lot of stress in it and not so much dyslexia, for example. It has limited use, but some people have said that this is a useful tool. So let's finish off the review and see what happens at the end. So let's exclude the last few. And when we hit the last labeling button, we get taken to this summary page. Now this summarizes, it's kind of like a printable page, perhaps. It summarizes when the review was done, and it gives you the positives. It gives you the includes, the articles that you've decided are of use for this review, of interest for this review. You can click these buttons here to go and re-review it. So you've finished this review. When you finish the review, the administrator is notified, and the administrator can then continue with the overall project. So let's go back and have a look at the tools that the administrator might use at the end. In a later video, I'll explain about exporting the articles, but at this point, I just wanted to discuss the screening snapshot export that you can do. This gives the administrator the ability to export basically a spreadsheet of everything that the collaborators have performed, including all the comments and the includes and excludes and so on. So this button here, we're exporting from the all articles, we're exporting the screening snapshot for everybody. The individual collaborators can actually export their own, but not each other's. So if we download this, you can see here that this document it's a technical document. This is used only by SYRAS. So it's basically a spreadsheet, but it has who did what, and it has the include and exclude, and also a numerical version of that as well. And here you can see that there's the comments, the rating comment column here. So if you want to import and export this into Excel or do something clever, then this gives you the ability, it gives you data freedom. The data's not locked away inside SYRAS. You can go and continue the review in your own way if you need to. So that's pretty much how the screening pages work. In the next guide, I will talk more about the overall process of doing a double screening review and how you would use the screening tools, how two or three, including the administrator, would use the screening tools to do that overall workflow. Hope that was useful.